Welcome, this is Josh Rees with Mile High Church in Lakewood, Colorado. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. For more information about our church, please visit our website, milehighchurch.org.
My title today is Rise Up, to be able to rise up. And becoming a luminous warrior, that's what I'm referring to this today. A luminous warrior is being committed to growing the heart and the soul and becoming a creative being. It is a call to awaken to our true nature and embrace the fullness of life. It's an invitation to step into our power and create a reality that reflects our highest aspirations. A luminous warrior. And with the Olympics, that first night when I guess it was the president over there in France, he spoke, I really picked up when he said that we all belong. 206 countries gathered together. And he said we all belong. And there's a sense of belonging. There's a sense of the capability of greatness when we come together. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the service, this is an incredible lighthouse where we do all belong. So a warrior is a being of spiritual light. Now let me just define warrior, because when we hear the word warrior, we get ready to fight. And the word war has come from the French, and what it has meant, a war is a state of armed conflict between different national groups. And I recognize that we are in a position right now in the United States of a lot of uncertainties. The world, a lot of uncertainties. And that word war is very, very scary. But to be able to recognize that, and in fact, I want to just pause here. Anyone that has served in the military, anyone who has served in conflict, in war, please know that I honor you and I honor your service. But what I'm talking about is luminous warriors of truth, warriors of light. And I feel very strongly that this is a time in history, in our day, this day, to recognize that there's a light that shines within us. I want to quote a great Native American chief, Sitting Bull. He said this, "Warriors are not what you think of as warriors. The warriors are not someone who fights. The warrior for us is the one who sacrificed themselves for the good of others. They take care of the elderly, the defenseless ones, those who cannot provide for themselves, and above all, the children and the truth of humanity." So a luminous is referring to radiance, it's referring to light. And I know each one of us, no matter what our path has been, that light has never gone out, nor will it ever go out within us. And so that radiance brings forth hope. And a lot of times when we use the word hope, people go, well, can't I just have the expansiveness of faith instead of just a little bit of hope? But I feel that hope is a stepping stone upon our path. Despite the doubts and the gloom that are around us often, we step forward, sensing the light that has always been present. So to be in that place of hope is a great stepping stone for each one of us. I have up on the screen a quote from the great Greek philosopher, Pontanus. He said, "I do not argue, I contemplate, and as I contemplate, I let fall the seeds of thought into the mind, into the mirror of mind, which then becomes the matter of matter. The way of the world is unpeaceful, unwise warriors. The wise warrior is already anchored in peace and love and in poise. They are focused on what needs to happen without needing to fight. But unfortunately, many are not anchored in peace and poise. And I know it's not you, it's probably your neighbor. or someone down the block, not you. But a lot of people are not anchored in that peace and that poise. And I once had a great teacher of mine say that conflict is a choice not to love. Conflict is a choice not to love. So I'm not talking about the government right now. I'm talking about us as individuals. Conflict is a choice not to love. But so many times, anger rules. It sneaks in. It comes in with big boots. And a lot of times those boots are muddy. Been out in a storm. And you feel those barbs of anger. A great teacher of mine, Dr. Thomas Hora, of existential metapsychiatry, long-term, but a great course, he said that anger means wanting or not wanting. Wanting or not wanting. And I often think about little kids, they have a big ball and they're playing and all of a sudden, I want it. No, I want it. So it's kind of a push and pull energy, anger is. And that takes place inside of us. And it takes us out of that special place of heartfulness where the light resides. Where the light resides. Now, is there a way that we can overcome when anger comes to us? I believe there is. And Dr. Hora talks about a term called transcendent observer. To become a transcendent observer is to be able to just pause on the path. And sometimes that's the biggest piece. To pause on the path. I do it a lot with my breath, just taking a deep breath. Just pausing for a few moments. And being able to transcend or lift to a higher place of seeing. And many times that metaphor, lift to a higher place of seeing, is being able to lift our energy from the conditions and all the effects and be able to be in a place of greater peace. Sometimes I'll say, peace be with you. Peace be with you. Sometimes I'll just repeat over and over again, peace, 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 peace. So whatever it is that works for you when you get into those places, and I'm making a big assumption that you get into those places at times, just to be able to, one simple thing, to be able to raise in your consciousness. And your consciousness is that field of awakening, that field of knowing. So next fall, which is not far away, I'm going to be teaching that course called Angerless Living, Transcendent Regard. And I've taught it before. People have loved it. And I just figured it was a good time in our world to offer that course. So I hope you consider perhaps signing up for that one. We have a lot of wonderful courses. So a luminous warrior knows to set down the sword. To be able to set down the sword and pick up the staff. To set down the sword, many times even in Taoism, that's a word, a phrase that they'll use. Sit down that sword and pick up the staff of life, which is the power of love. So sitting down that sword and picking up the staff. That staff is the peace. It's the assurance, it's the gratitude and the love of life itself. So I believe very strongly, now I'm going to say this to the whole wide world. If we have enough love, we can melt all the guns. If we have enough love, we can melt all the guns of war. We could set them aside. Many times when I think that, or I've said that before, people look at me like, that could never happen. Well, perhaps it might not happen in my lifetime. But maybe in the lifetime of my grandkids or our great-grandkids. But for us, as people that live and breathe in this beautiful lighthouse of religious science, this dome of consciousness, a field of being aware, that Spirit is not far off. Spirit is right here within us. And it is that beautiful, beautiful staff of life, the staff of life. So that's another phrase we can use if we all of a sudden we're looking at TV or somewhere or talking to someone and there's any kind of anger going on. It's like, just go to your heart space. Take a deep breath because you're holding the staff. You're holding that staff of peace. William Shakespeare, he said, go to your bosom, knock there, and ask your heart what it does know. Ask the heart what it does know. For love holds us together. I feel that love is a glue. Many years ago, I had the great gift of being able to serve a woman in hospice. And we became fairly close. She couldn't talk anymore, but just being together in presence was a great gift. But before she had kind of melded into that place where she couldn't speak, she used to share a lot about her grandson by the name of Jamie. And I thought, wow, I'd love to meet this Jamie kid. He was just a little guy. Well, after she passed, they asked me to do the service. I went to her house to be with her daughter and her family. And there was Jamie. Jamie took control. Jamie came to the kitchen table and he sat down. And this is what the kid said. And I shared this story many years ago. And as I finished sharing the story out in the lobby, Jamie came up to me. He said, I'm Jamie. But this is what Jamie said. He said, my grandma and I, we have a formula for love. So all my attention was with this kid because he took control. I said, Jamie, what is that formula? He said, it's popsicle sticks, stars, and macaroni. That was their formula for love. And I never forgot that. And of course, I did speak about that at our service. But to have that formula of love, because it's a glue, and for Jamie and his grandma, it was a glue. Charles Dixon wrote, a loving heart is the truest wisdom of all. The truest wisdom of all. So we speak about wisdom. And wisdom is golden. Wisdom is light. You know, we say, well, you're in the years of wisdom. We're all in the year of wisdom because it is that beam of light. And so they say, look for wise people on the path. Look for warriors of light. And I'm affirming today as I speak that each one of us, we are warriors of light. We're warriors of peace. And so that wisdom of light, we could even say it is the Christ energy in our light. We could say it is the Buddha energy in our light. Any of the great mystics that have gone before us, they knew of that wisdom and they knew of that light. And I feel very strongly that we are in such an incredible space upon our planet, energetically, on all levels. I love to communicate with Grandmother Earth. We had a beautiful Native American Inipi sweat lodge at our house yesterday. And it was so good to sit upon the ground. It was so good to feel the warmth of the heat or the hotness of the heat. But it was good to sit there as the rain was overhead and lightning overhead, to be in that place of the belly of Grandmother Earth. So the energy, especially in nature, and Hazrat Khan, the great Sufi master, he said, the greatest scripture ever written is nature. So to be able to find time in nature, especially in these times, to ground back in and realize that you are shining forth light. And as we do that collectively, things have a way of changing. So we know that love opens doors. It opens doors. The doorway of heart, to be loving, opens doors. It doesn't slam them. It opens those doors. And so be a luminous warrior of spiritual light, using the power of love to conquer fear and doubt, to conquer it. Because that crazy fear is just false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And so doubt kind of hangs out behind fear. And it just hangs in the background and it feels uncertain about things. So it's a drag, isn't it, to be with a lot of fear. Of course, perhaps I'm not speaking to the right congregation. You probably have never had any fear. Maybe I've only been the only one. But to be able to recognize, once again, that fear cannot consume us. I've heard a lot of people recently talk about, wow, we're in fearful times. What if we could say, we are in the most powerful time of light that has been on this planet for centuries upon centuries. Powerful time of light. You walk into the forest and you see the tall trees and you see the blue sky. Thank God we have blue sky and not the smoke. But we have the blue sky and the sun rays. Let it remind us of who we are as spiritual beings. So it's important that in a time of chaos, and many times chaos is when we're stirring the soup. You know, in our lives we have what we call kind of a flow that's taking place. And then we have a staccato where we're moving with it. And then we have chaos. And chaos is when we're stirring the soup. And perhaps we're stirring the soup right now to come into a greater place of flow. A greater place of knowing who we are as a world, who we are as nations and a nation, and who we are as beings. So we turn to love instead of fear. Love instead of fear. That we channel strength from the deep down within ourselves instead of fear and doubt. So that fear, false evidence appearing real. So a warrior of light, a being of light, can be defined as a person or a character who embodies the qualities of courage, of honesty, and rightful thinking. Or we could say righteous thinking. Righteous thinking is rightful thinking. And that right thinking is recognizing that spiritual essence, that self with a capital S, that spiritual self. That's rightful thinking. There's a little phrase in metapsychiatry that says, take no thought for what should be or should not be, but seek ye first to know the good of God, which already is. So this is embracing the spiritual light. Take no thought for what should or should not be, but seek ye first to know the good of God, which already is. Now, these principles that we behold in religious science and other incredible philosophies that are woven into what we believe, they're not just for people that are going to walk around with blinders on. They're for all of us who have taken off blinders and we're walking around with the light shining brightly, so brightly. So Ernest Holmes, he once said, we shall take the highest thought we have and attempt to enlarge on the consciousness until it embraces a vital concept of reality. So what is reality? What is really real? I feel what is really real, just have the word real, is spirit, God, whatever you call it, the light, the wisdom. That's what's really real. Many years ago now, my husband and I, Luke, we moved to the mountain. It was, I think, 2008 when there was a lot of those funky loans. And I knew that we went up there on kind of a funky loan to be able to get there. And I knew that eventually we'd have to get out of that and get a more solid loan, which we have. But in that process, at that time, it was crazy making. And the loan officer said that we had bulletproof credit. And how come this wasn't coming through? How come this wasn't coming through? Well, yes, we would get discouraged. But what I did, it sounded kind of crazy, but it meant a lot and it opened doors, was on little postums, I placed what is really real. So it helped me focus on the reality of spirit instead of all the conditions. I put them in my cupboard doors. It was in my Jeep. It was everywhere I could see it. What is really real? And after 3 attempts through Wall Street and everything, all of a sudden we got a phone call from a gentleman from Minnesota. I want to buy that loan. I said, thank you. Also sent him a big bouquet of flowers. He wrote back a note. He said, I've never had anyone send me a bouquet of flowers before because I'm so grateful, because I recognize what really is, and thank you, God. So it works. It works. Let me tell you how it works. So rise up above challenges with our faith and our belief and our perseverance. The true test of a warrior of light is how you stance. What does your stance hold up after any circumstances? Meaning, even after the stormiest weather, a true warrior will still reflect the brilliant light. I'm thinking about the Olympics, Lady Bethany Hamilton, a surfer. At the age of 13, nationally ranked surfer, lost her arm in a shark attack. Within weeks, she returned to surfing. I'm thinking today of, get emotional here, of Simone Biles. Her theme is Rise Up. And I didn't realize that when I picked that topic a long time ago, but that's her theme, Rise Up. And she has done that through therapy for her situations that she had way back when that caused problems in her confidence. Rise up. And that's what she's doing today. So overcoming obstacles, overcoming challenges, obstacles are a natural part of the journey. However, they do not define us. Instead, they provide opportunities for our growth and our learning. And when we encounter difficulties, we make the choice that they're stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Going above conditions, and I think we have a slide of Jackson leaping through the air. A lot of times we have to do that. We just have to leap over the conditions and the effects. I remember when Jack was just a little guy, and we had gone to New Mexico as a family with Jack. He was running in a race in New Mexico. It was wintertime, and it was freezing cold. I mean, it was really cold, and it was icy, and, it's snowing and everything, but they're still having the race. So we kept the little guy in the car as long as we could to keep him warm. And so he went out, he ran the race, and I just prayed for all these young kids that were out there in the cold. And afterwards, I said to Jackson, Jack, what takes place for you when you're out there like that? And this is what he said. He said, Grandma, I go above my head. I go above my head. And I have thought about that a lot with Jack. And he goes above the conditions. Even as a little guy, he went above the cold. And so a lot of us, we have to remember that. And Jack wrote this. He said, what if everyone adopted the mentality of a distant runner? Or we could say today, Olympic participant. Believe and place it in your heart. Running with your heart and conquering your mind. Push through. Love holds all together. Take one step at a time. Have a personal sense of having to have done your best. Step up and move forward. Running makes you feel grateful. A wise, a luminous warrior is always anchored in golden awareness of peace and poise. I was so grateful that I was able to be there at that famous Hayward Field to watch the athletes. It wasn't just being there for Jack, but to watch all the athletes and their focus, their commitment. Well, maybe that's not for us. It's certainly not for me. I'm not going to go out and run 14 miles a day to train. Probably not even going to walk too far. But to recognize that it's such a inspiration for each one of us to recognize the gift of focus. The gift of focus to get above conditions when situations are challenging. When situations are challenging. And to rise up and support and uplift ourselves. And I saw that with Jack. It was an incredible experience of being at the trials, and he was so honored that he was there. He's fairly young, and he was there with a lot of older guys that were really good, really good. But one of the older guys came up to him, put his arm around him and said, "Jackson, I'll see you back here next year at the World Games." Jack said, "You will." So no matter utilizing Jack in the Olympics today, because it's perfect that the Olympics are on, and probably a lot of these people are home watching the Olympics, God bless them, but to recognize that it's for each one of us. We can adopt those messages to never give up, to always do your best. And at Hayward Field, he said, "Grandma, I did my best." I said, "I know you did." So the questions: I rise up, support, and uplift my community with love and kindness. What are ways daily that we rise to enlightenment, transcend, embrace spiritual knowledge? Ways we weave the wisdom? I'm asking you that question. And to be a luminous warrior is to discover the power of fearlessness. Our job is to ask love to vanish the opposite. So do you see yourself as a torchbearer of truth? Someone who never resorts to deceit and reminds yourself always of your steadfastness and that your path is a path of honesty to self? So what I affirm is that this is a community. Uplift my community, my family and friends of love. So I bring in prayer, and I recognize that we have practitioners that will be present down front for prayer. Prayer is another important part. It's a ladder we climb to realize that a luminous light within. So in conclusion, all to rise up, all to awaken to our true nature. It's an invitation to step into our power and to create. And as we leave this gathering here this morning, let us take the message in our hearts and our minds, knowing that we have the power and the presence within to rise and transform our lives. So sit down the sword and pick up the staff of peace, assurance, gratitude, and love. So I want to read this before I offer a prayer. In the heart's sacred chamber, a lantern softly glows, a beacon in the darkness where the river and the Spirit flow. It's not a light that's kindled, nor a flame that ever dies. It's the eternal sunrise, the Christ within that lies. This light is not borrowed from the sun or the moon above. It is the radiance, inner brilliance from the sun and the moon above. It's the radiant inner brilliance born of divine love. It is the light of understanding, of compassion, and of grace. A testament of the divine. In every heart, it has a place. The Christ light is the compass and guides us through the night. Through storms of life, it leads us to shores of love and light. It's the star in our existence, the core of all that's right, the echo of God's whisper, the inner spiritual light. So let me just offer a prayer right now as we move into prayer. Oh, just giving thanks for that light. Above, below, and in and through. There's nowhere where that divine light is not. Nowhere. And so just recognizing that. I know that it is the holy truth of each one present and all of those who are not present, but yet they are the consciousness of this great lighthouse. Oh, and I just give thanks. I give thanks for the gathering, each of us gathering as a luminous beings of light. So may your day and the rest of this week, may you sense the brilliant sparkles of your light, now and forevermore. And so it is. Amen.
Thanks for listening to the Mile High Church podcast. This podcast is made possible by the generous contributions from listeners like you. To make a donation, please visit milehighchurch.org.